Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedom and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties education and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country. In the courtrooms of America, Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedom.
A United States House subcommittee recently passed a fetal pain bill that would ban abortions after 20 weeks. I am Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Joining me is Matt Barber, vice president of Liberty Counsel Action, to talk about this important bill. Hopefully, Matt, this thing gets to the full House and then also goes to the Senate. But certainly it needs to be passed, and obviously at a minimum it needs to be debated, especially in light of what we've seen with Kermit Gosnell and Pennsylvania, and now the other doctor just like him in Texas, and there's many others around the country as well.
Yeah, the pro-abortion lobby, the multi-billion-dollar pro-abortion lobby, knows that the jig is up. I mean, the fight goes on, and we're a long way out, but the pro-life movement is making gains, leaps and bounds around the country with state laws that are being passed to protect the innocent lives of the unborn. And, you know, we know in 1973 with Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court in that just horrible decision was illogical to begin with, but they posited in their argument in the majority decision that we don't really know when life begins, that science isn't really clear, and there is no consensus on that. Well, that's no longer an excuse. The consensus is now clear. Life begins at conception. Scientists agree whether they're pro-abortion or pro-choice. And we also know the science is clear as to when babies in the womb can feel pain through their facial expressions, through chemical tests that have been done and so forth. We know that they are feeling pain when they are ripped apart in their mother's womb. So this is a great step in the right direction toward protecting the lives of the innocent.
You know, and frankly, going back to 1973 when the Supreme Court made that decision, said we don't need to determine when life begins. Well, that's the crux of abortion. And they said, well, that's a question we don't have to decide. It was known back then when life begins. In fact, if you go back 8 years before Roe versus Wade to the famous Life magazine photographs, the very front cover is this baby in the womb, and the entire series of this Life magazine was the moment of conception all the way to the late second, early third trimester. Amazing photographs of children in the womb. So they knew. They just ignored it, and they didn't want to address it. But this bill, which is introduced by Representative Trent Franks from Arizona, a strong pro-life individual. By the way, Trent was propelled into the pro-life arena by the same video that I watched, a movie. Back then it was Reel to Reel, and it was Assignment Life. And that's one thing that turned him around and got him introduced to the pro-life movement. Same for me as well. But he introduced this bill. It's called the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. It will protect women and preborn children or children in the womb from atrocities like Kermit Gosnell. And in this particular case, it was approved by the House Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution and Civil Justice by a vote of 6-4. The full House of Representatives could vote on the measure approving this particular measure. And it essentially would ban abortions after you can feel pain. Yeah. And it would ultimately protect life at least from 20 weeks post-gestation.
Well, Congressman Franks, who is a good friend of yours, a good friend of Liberty Counsel, Matt, he said in talking about this, the introduction of this bill, which was originally introduced in the District of Columbia, which allows abortion up to the moment of birth. He then applied it nationwide. He said this: we as a nation find ourselves at a point at which we don't offer unborn children even the most basic protections, even protection we extend to animals and property. And Matt, a former abortionist, testified about this bill before the House Judiciary Subcommittee on May 23rd. He said this: these procedures are brutal by their nature. This is Dr. Anthony Levantino. He added that late-term abortions can result in preterm labor or precipitous delivery. And he talked about the Gosnell situation, said it has brought to the public's attention what we're talking about when we're talking about this level of abortion. This, again, Matt, is just a basic common sense, humane first step toward protecting human beings we're talking about here.
Yeah, and in fact, now there's a released information from University of Toronto. He's a neurologist, Dr. Paul Ranalli, and he says that 20 weeks, which is where this bill actually focuses on, 20 weeks is, he calls it, a uniquely vulnerable time for the child in the womb. Why? Because the pain system has been fully developed in this child. But one thing that has not been fully developed is the higher level pain modifying system. You know, sometimes when you as an adult have some severe pain, you ultimately sometimes don't feel it as much because your body reacts to it, modifies it, and once you're past that critical moment, you'll start to feel more pain subsequent to that. At a 20-week gestation, your full pain sensors are developed, but the repressive modifying factor that would put a sort of governor, if you will, to an engine, on the incredible level of pain is not developed. So what happens is the 20-week-old feels pain at a greater level than an adult would feel pain. It feels the full pain without the modifying effect. So that's a very vulnerable area. Now this is where Gosnell and others were doing all of their abortions, that area and post 20 weeks. And they were snipping the spinal cords of these babies. It would incredibly hurt if you did that to a human being that's fully developed. But if you're doing it to a human being that is only 20 or 20 post weeks gestation, it's even more incredible.
Well, and worse than the snipping of the spinal cords, which is just horrific. I mean, they were dismembering, and they still dismember alive.
And just imagine babies grabbing onto your arm and just taking and ripping,
twisting and ripping
it off.
Yeah, and so we're talking about some of this in clinical terms, but let's bring it down to the humanitarian level for a minute. People who say that they're pro-choice, but Joe Biden famously, claims to be Catholic, famously in his vice presidential debate leading up to the last election, said what we hear so often from people who claim to be pro-choice. Well, I'm pro-life personally. I'm personally opposed to abortion, but I can't push my beliefs on other people, and who am I to take away a woman's right to choose? That is nonsensical. It's incongruous. It's incoherent. It's inconsistent, and it's no different than the folks in Nazi Germany who would say, kind of acquiesce to what was happening in the slaughter of millions of Jews, just said, well, wouldn't do that myself, but I'm going to silently sit back and let it happen. And to those who actually advocate, who are involved in the abortion industry, in light of the science, you have no excuse. You no longer have an excuse. Have you no soul? I ask people who now claim to be pro-choice, who are involved in the abortion industry, check yourself. Check and see, look at what you're doing, what you're supporting, look at the science, cut through all the rationalizations, and come on board and defend human life.
Yeah, it's if you look at the actual issue here, and this is what I was confronted with when I saw this assignment live. I saw the development of the unborn child in the womb. And when you look at that, it's indisputable that it's human life. It can't be anything else. It is indisputable that it's human life. And then when you look at the science of it, it's clearly indisputable that it's human life. And then you look at the aftermath of abortions, and we're not talking about 20-week abortions or after. We're talking about in the early phases of the pregnancy, where you see the little rib cages and the eyes and the skull. I mean, it's just absolute brutality. It's as gross as anything that you would see in the Holocaust. And that's what happens every day. And confront that. Don't just simply ignore it, but confront it. Look at evil directly in the eye, and I pray that you ultimately do flinch, and that ultimately changes you. One of the things that's in this study is that after 8 weeks from fertilization, and this is just barely about the time that you even know you're pregnant, 8 weeks from fertilization, the unborn child reacts to touch. So even at that point in time, there's a sensitivity to touch. This pain fetal, it's called the Pain Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, passed out of the Judiciary Committee, going to the full House. Pray that it passes. And pray that this moment that America has experienced with Kermit Gosnell, which, by the way, is not an abnormality. It's not like he's the only one out there. This is the face of abortion. Pray that this changes America, brings us to our knees, calls America to repentance, and that we no longer just go casually through our lives and ignore what's happening in our backyards and through this country, that we ultimately repent, change our ways, and restore a culture of life in America. Go to Liberty Counsel's website, lifeunited.org. That's lifeunited.org. If you know of someone who's facing a crisis pregnancy, go to that website, or you want more information about abortion, lifeunited.org is a website that we launched in conjunction with Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar and other pro-life ministries. Again, that website is lifeunited.org.
You have been listening to Faith and Freedom with Liberty Counsel. We hope that we have motivated you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedom. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email updates. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.